What is happening, you guys? Hope you guys are all doing very well out there. In this video today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Tucson. As some of you guys may know, we were born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and we started off our Arizona journey in Tucson, which we lived out there for roughly about 3 years, and we've since then moved up here to the Phoenix metro area. So this video is going to be breaking down some of the stuff we noticed while we were out there, and this can be pros or cons, just depending on who you ask or what you're looking for. It can be a very desirable place, or it can be a place you might not want to go to. So we're going to break it down in this video. Let's get into it. So one of the first things we noticed when we lived out there was how dark it got at nighttime. We started to realize that there weren't as many street lamps as there are, at least as there was in Denver. And we found out that they have some observatories out there in the area that they wanted to keep the light pollution down out in Tucson. So I don't know if they passed some sort of something that they wanted to basically just not have as many street lamps out there, so that they could keep the skies more clear at night for the observatories. So that's a pretty cool thing for us. We weren't really used to that. So, and then we're out on the hike, by the way. Same spot we were at the last time, but we are taking the west path. But out in let me get back to the subject. Out in the neighborhoods, there's really not any street lamps. So when it gets dark outside, it's pretty much just like being out in the middle of the desert. You do have street lamps like on the main roads, in like the downtown and like the college areas, but like most of the neighborhoods, it is dark. And another thing to note with that is we don't have a daylight saving, so we don't adjust our clocks out here. So a lot of times it gets darker out here in Arizona by an hour earlier than everybody else when people set their clocks the other direction. So that is one thing that we did notice, was how dark it got at nighttime. All right, so the second thing I want to talk about is the traffic out there. From the places we've drove through a lot, being Denver, California, Phoenix Metro, Tucson by far has the least amount of traffic when it comes to the rush hour that everybody dreads. There's really not a major rush hour out there. I'd say kind of one of the issues with the traffic, though, is being that Tucson is, a lot of it's a kind of a retirement kind of city. A lot of the drivers like to drive under the speed limit. So even though you have less cars, you have cars that drive really slow. So that was a huge adjustment for us being from Denver, because we like to move out there in Denver. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the people out there. When you contrast the people from Denver to the people in Tucson, I would say that people in Tucson are very friendly, very nice, easy to talk to people. But one thing we did notice is we found that a lot of businesses out there kind of had like a shady, like car salesman type of feel to it. And that's just our personal experience. But I speculate that I feel like the reason that is, or maybe one of the contributing reasons, is because at the time when we lived out there, Tucson's economy was very, very, very shaky. They were still recovering from the 2008 crash when we lived out there, and where most like major markets had already rebounded from all of that, Tucson still hadn't rebounded from it. So there could be a factor of, you know, businesses just trying to make it and feeling like they have to be, you know, very sleazy and, you know, practice business in like a sleazy kind of way just to kind of get over to make it. So I mean, that could be it. I don't know, but we did find that a lot of businesses we dealt with out there just is like not the same as, you know, like the big major city like Denver. You know, even out here in Phoenix, we don't really feel like we get that as much as we'd seen it in Tucson. It's like, it seems like a lot out there. Now the crime out there, it felt, being from Denver, the crime out there felt like Tucson was like a night and day difference when it came to safety. I feel like Tucson is a very safe place. But you'll have people that live out there that'll tell you that it's not safe. But maybe they just haven't been to like a major city like Denver, or where you see a lot of like gangs and stuff like that. Tucson, you don't really see any kind of like gang activity. You do see, you know, some homelessness and a lot of like maybe drug addicts or people that, you know, were drug addicts at some point in their life. You'll see a lot of that. But as for like, you know, it feeling safe, I definitely felt safe, you know, pretty much everywhere I was at out there. Now, another thing I want to talk about that gets brought up here and there is the thought that it's cooler in Tucson than it is out here in the Phoenix metro. Now, there is some truth to that. If you look at the weather, you will see that Tucson is typically, you know, maybe like 5-10 degrees cooler throughout the year. And I think that's because of the elevation. It's a little bit, Tucson's a little bit higher in elevation, which, you know, brings a little bit cooler temperatures. And they also say because Phoenix has a lot of concrete that it contributes to the heat. But from my experience, when it's hot in the summertime in both places, you cannot tell the difference. I've actually felt hotter in Tucson than the hottest I felt out here in Phoenix. And I want to say it's like kind of like probably a mental thing. There's some sort of, for me personally, when I see a lot of green grass and water and it's 115 degrees out, it doesn't feel as hot as if you're in Tucson and it looks like this, like all desert, no water, no trees, cactus, and it's 110 degrees. For some reason, that grass and water just makes it seem cooler, even though it's probably not. So that kind of like, to me, makes it pretty much just like feel like the same. I can't tell the difference between 110 and 115 degrees. Like it's just hot. Like you can't get around it. It's just hot. But that's one thing that gets brought up a lot from a lot of people that live in Tucson, is they'll say, "Oh, I'll never live in Phoenix because it's way too hot." Now, I don't know if they're just saying that just because it's kind of like a word of mouth thing, or if they've actually lived in both places. And I've lived in both places, and I think it feels pretty much the same out here. But, you know, that's just me. You know, it depends. That's one of those things where it kind of just depends on who you ask. We're done with our little trail hike right here. Head back to the car, so probably end up finishing this video back at the casa. Now, when we first moved out to Tucson, we got an apartment out there, and I think we were paying like $1,000, $1,100 for like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. And it felt like we were living on a resort. It was so nice. And we always talk about, like, if we were to rent this kind of apartment back in Denver, we would probably be paying like $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 for something comparable whereas in Tucson we were paying $1,000. But that was back, like I said, that was back in like 2016 or 2015. Stuff has definitely gone up all over. So I couldn't even tell you. Let me see. Let me look it up real quick, because I remember the name. It was called Bear Canyon. So I'm gonna look up to see what a 2-bedroom goes for now. I'm gonna do you guys can see this. So this one here, we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $1,395 and $1,435. And you can kind of see this, the floor plan here. It's 993 square feet. And then let's see, a 1-bedroom is, wow, $1,275 for a 1-bedroom. And then your 3-bedroom is gonna run you, call for details on the 3-bedroom. So they don't tell you the price on the 3-bedroom. But that is where we first stayed at when we moved out there. And it's gone up a little bit. I mean, that's not bad. $1,400 for a 2-bedroom. We were paying about $1,000, you know, 5 years later or 4 years later. Well, actually 6 years later. Yeah, so 6 years later, it's gone up about $400. But it's a really nice community. Like I said, if we rented something comparable in Denver, we would have been paying at least $1,700 at the time. Now, if you were to rent that, you're probably in like the 2000s easily, $2,200, $2,300. If you were to rent something like that in Denver today, maybe even more. Stuff's out there is so expensive. I know out here it's gonna probably be up there. You're gonna probably be about maybe 2,000 to rent that, something comparable out here. But yeah, so that is what I'd say about the cost of living when it comes to housing. The last thing I want to talk about with you guys is the scenery. Tucson scenery is kind of like I would say like a one-trick pony. It's basically just pure desert. There's not much grass, greenery outside of like the palm trees and like the desert landscape stuff, but it's just very, very like, you know, sand, rock, earth tones kind of scenery. You do have a big beautiful mountain that's just right and pretty much just like right north of the city. And there are houses that surround it, probably on 3 sides, but it's a massive mountain. It's beautiful. And I'd say from what people have said is, you know, they're about 10 years behind everybody, so you kind of can see that in their like infrastructure and their buildings and all that kind of stuff. They do look like they're a little bit of a blast from the past. But if you're looking for like that pure desert, laid back, you know, kind of scenery, like Tucson is perfect. Like Phoenix is different because we have the same desert look here in some places, and we also have, you know, areas that kind of remind me of like what Florida looks like. Very green, very grassy. You kind of get a little bit of everything out here in Phoenix, whereas in Tucson you only get one. There's only one option, and it's just desert. But it's a very, very beautiful option nonetheless. But you know, it's still a great place. It's definitely, you know, for people to retire, it's a great place. It's a lot of different things to do out there. There's some really nice like zoos. There's a place called History. I think it's the Natural History Museum. I think that's the name of it. It's kind of like basically just like a zoo. But it's cool. It's probably one of the best places, one of the best zoos I've ever been to, because it's a zoo, but it's like built into the natural desert. So it's like they didn't like build a bunch of fake stuff to make it look like like the animal's habitat. It's like the actual habitat the animal lives in, so it's just desert, and then everything's like it's a really cool spot. That's one place I'd definitely like to go back to again if we were up for like the 2-hour drive to get down there. But that's real cool. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Hopefully you got some information about, you know, Tucson, and maybe helps your decision on if you're gonna head out that way or not. And like I said, it's a great place, just depending on, you know, where you are at in your life and what you want to do. So besides that, you guys know the deal. Peace.